Well, hello and welcome to the Frustration of Freedom podcast. This is the podcast where we bring people, great people from our network to help you overcome some of your frustrations to achieve freedom. So today, what I've got Nat Bibby here from Bibby Consulting. And so welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. What a privilege to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too, mate. Look, everyone knows about, the illness or, what's happening in the economy at the moment. And for me, what I'm seeing is that a lot of our clients and even potential clients are getting pretty frustrated in terms of, how do they pivot? How do they open new doors? Maybe they know specifically who they want to get onto, but they don't know how to open that door and start that conversation. So, you being somewhat of a LinkedIn expert, I thought would be quite timely to bring you on and to just really talk through some of those frustrations to see if we could help our audience.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, well, look, I think that during these times, first of all, you've got to be quite sensitive. Depending on what industry your clients are in, some of them are going to be in a quite emotional or fear-based state. And so really, a lot of it on social media is about being consistent, being empathetic, and preparing your brand for when we come out of this thing. By doing that, because if you sort of pack up shop, stop responding to people, or what have you, like restaurants, for example, that stop communicating with the people that come there, it's gonna take them a longer time to get back on their feet. Yeah. Unfortunately, because if you're struggling in your business as well, quite often the natural inclination is like, how do I get more sales? And they start hitting up prospects going, buy my stuff. And if they're in a fear-based state, or they've, just lost half their clients, it's not going to do much to build their brand. So you just have to be very empathetic. And what I've found is, like, if you do that and you ask the right questions, what are the challenges? What can you do to prepare your brand for when you come out of COVID? It can lead to business discussions. If you find out that they have a problem that you can help them with or can solve, then quite quickly it can become the priority, and they will engage with you.
Yeah, no, good. So what are some of the things? Do you have any examples of some of the clients that you've helped kind of pivot and then create a campaign and help them start opening some doors?
Yeah, I mean, where do I start? There's heaps. So, one I liked that was last year was a startup that developed e-bikes, and he said to me that he wanted to raise $1 million in 6 weeks. And I said, "Well, you're crazy," but yeah, we're more than happy to run a campaign for you. People have, if they're an angel investor, they generally have that on their profile. There's a few groups with investors and startups that are in there. So we just started hitting them up and said, can we have a talk to you about an opportunity? 6 weeks later, he raised just over $1 million, which was, fantastic result. Yeah. Where else in the world, can you go from not having any contacts and not any relationships to being able to find enough investors to get your business to the next level within such a short time frame? It's really amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so look, we, a lot of our audience is typically in manufacturing or professional service firms. So a lot of them are business to business. So what would say a manufacturer, they're potentially, they could have been servicing an industry, could even be joinery, servicing retail, which has obviously just pulled the plug. And now they need to, pivot to either schools or something else. So what's the process? How does someone start if they're thinking about using LinkedIn? Where do you start, and what are the steps to kind of start using it and getting some results?
Yeah, we've had a few clients come to us like that. Like, we need a pivot. We want to target like supermarket chains, or Motorola came to us and said they wanted to target the mining industry. They've got some software. Well, I don't know if you call it software, but technology that makes workplaces COVID friendly. And so, my first question is, well, within these companies, who are the decision makers? And it's, if it's a big organization, B2B, generally there's more than one. And then we can map out an idea of who the target person is to speak to. Right. And you can search by, what title they have in their LinkedIn profile, what industry they're in, what location they're in. So it's about using the advanced search feature, which is part of the free LinkedIn account. Like you can, but not just putting keywords in. So you go to advanced, and then you can put in these parameters, and then when you find these people, it's just a matter of approaching them the right way and sending them a connection request, reaching out to them and saying that you want to talk to them about something and trying to pull the conversation offline. I think what most people do, well, I know most people do this because I see them in my inbox and my clients' inbox, but they will just say, oh, look, here's our stuff. They start selling straight away without actually taking the time to speak to somebody and find out, first of all, if they're the right person to speak to, and second of all, if they have the need or have a problem in the first place. Like I'm in marketing, so I say to them, "What's your plans for your business? Do you want more clients?" Because if they don't want more clients, I don't really think I can add much value.
Right.
You know what I
So
mean?
it starts with a connection request and then some kind of qualification question.
Yeah, from a sales perspective, and that's really where my career started, is in sales. So it's just about getting in front of the right people. And I was getting sick and tired of getting all these website leads that were just every man and his dog who was inquiring about online marketing. And I found that the medical practitioners were great clients. They spent a lot of money. They didn't know much about marketing. They constantly needed a newer flow of leads. Yeah. And so I thought, I just want to deal with these guys. So I go on LinkedIn, find them all, start messaging them. And then what happens is, because your network grows in that particular industry, it doesn't take long before you're the perceived expert in the medical industry. And you can even put that on your profile. I'm the digital marketing expert in the medical industry. And then you have a point of difference which no one else can compete with. And then all of a sudden you're not competing with all the other web marketing firms because you specialize in their industry, and you will learn by default, like, what are the nuances of their industry. There's probably not that much, but it is nothing more frustrating than when, there is something in your industry, like they have to be quite careful with testimonials, for example. And, you engage somebody and they go and make, the biggest mistake, which is obvious to them. But most web marketing companies may not be aware of. I think niching is really powerful in terms of marketing on LinkedIn. But content, like, we got to talk about content, because it's only in the last 3 or 4 years that LinkedIn has enabled us to post content. It was first articles, now it's videos, and it's just like Facebook was 5-10 years ago, because we can get such a great organic reach from our personal profiles.
Right. Yeah, because it always when we used to use LinkedIn a fair bit a few years ago, and it was it was quite challenging in terms of posting videos and things like that. It was hard to automate and things. So a lot of that has changed now, has it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was only 2 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that they even introduced video in the first place. And so now they're at the point where there's a few beta testers around the world. I'm one of them, which can do live video. That's following the same trends as Facebook. And then they've introduced LinkedIn stories, but only in Australia, UAE, and Brazil so far. It's interesting. We're one of the early adopters, but they're testing it. And from the statistics I can see on stories, it's going to be very similar to Instagram was at the start when they introduced stories. When it goes global, the numbers will, increase by 30, 40 times. So at the moment, I'm getting like 150 odd views on each story. And so that'll go to 3,000 or 4,000, which is quite a good reach for something like that.
Yeah. So you do find that, a lot of people are using it, engaging in it, and then, wanting to almost be okay with being introduced to other people.
Yeah, look, that's what they're on there for, is for networking reasons. So as long as you show interest in the other person, like people, doesn't matter who you're contacting, you can be pretty sure that they're interested in talking about themselves. And so showing interest in the other person, rather than, it's tempting to explain, what we do and why they should talk to us. It's very tempting. But you want to make sure that they're interested. I always say to people, you can only tell people 2 things: what they already know, or what they already know they want to know. Otherwise, you come across as a salesperson. You just got to ask questions and say, look, I've had a look at your profile. I'm interested in what you do. I'm curious to find out more about your business, to see if there's an opportunity for us to work together. Something like that. It cuts through the noise. They're like, okay, this guy's interested in me, as opposed to, we've won all these awards. Here are our testimonials. We work with this client, this client, this client. start selling when this guy hasn't even asked for the information in the first place.
Yeah. Look, we're a big fan of, our clients getting really specific around who it is that they're targeting, whether it's an industry or, just really nailing down, I am a specialist with da 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 da. Like, for us, it's manufacturing and professional service firms. So I think if clients are really specific on that, then they can turn to something like LinkedIn and say, well, let's look for manufacturers that have, 15 or more employees, and then potentially just target straight at the owner, for example.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
We find that we get just as good results when we go right up to the top of the food chain as we do, C-suite executives, as we do smaller businesses or, employees. So I think, well, if that's the case, then you just go from the top down. You're better off getting referred to the, purchasing manager from the CEO than the other way around.
Yes. Yeah. No, good. And so is there a combination of, direct messaging, asking some questions around them, some qualification, and content? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I think,
what's the balance there?
Well, I mean, it does depend on your priorities, but the direct messaging is the way to get immediate leads. And, I think that those questions, those qualifying questions should actually happen over the telephone. So the idea is you just you're only asking for one thing, and basically you're asking for a conversation with them, pulling the conversation offline, which means then you've taken the relationship to another level. You've got more control over the sales process. And if they commit to a call, then, you can just say at the start, the purpose of this call is for me to find out a bit more about your business, see if there's a good fit for us to explore further or not. Yeah. Is it okay if I ask you some questions? And people like that, so it's just a matter of being empathetic and building a relationship. And then with the content play, people think, oh, I'll post a video and then I'm going to get all these leads. It doesn't really work like that. It's more so building a brand, because you're just educating the audience over time about what you do, and they hopefully, if the content's reasonable, they'll like you and trust you, which means if they like you and trust you, they're more likely to do business with you than the next guy. It's just the same as the old days. Coca-Cola used to do billboards and ads on TV, and every ad is an impression, and in your subconscious you'll remember them, and if you like and trust them, then you'll buy Coke. So it's the same thing with us. I mean, it's called the mere exposure effect. Basically, mere exposure effect is a psychological phenomenon that says, more time a brand is exposed to, customers exposed to your brand, the more likely they are to do business with you. And they say that these days we need around 25 exposures in order for somebody to like and trust you enough to want to do this.
So you find that, C-level execs they're scrolling through LinkedIn now, looking for content and engaging.
Well, yeah. In the last 18 months, the amount of time that the average person spends on LinkedIn has gone up by 300%. So that means that LinkedIn's algorithm's getting better. It's showing people better content, so they enjoy spending time there. Yeah. The research says that people trust the content on LinkedIn 3 times more than the other social platforms. So, business guys and business leaders are going there for a lot of their information about what's going on in their network. They may be on there to look for staff. They may be on there to, speak to potential business partners. There's any, reason, but most of them are, as you say, scrolling through the newsfeed. So you have got their, captive audience there. If you can capture their attention and build trust, then, so it is a very much I think the lead generation side of things is not just a marketing skill. It's very much a social selling skill as well, which is very different to responding to an inquiry that you might get off a website where people are going, well, what's your rates? They know what they want. You've got to go one step back. You're at a networking function and you don't know anything about this person, and you just know that they're in your target audience, but they may or may not have the problem that you solve yet. So you just have to find out.
So so YouTube typically has videos for say 10 minutes. Facebook is, you want to keep the videos real short. What's the rules with LinkedIn in terms of content? Words versus videos, how many words, how long of a video, things like that.
Yeah, great question. So LinkedIn have said that they want people to be doing a mix of content, images, video, and long form articles. So that's where you'll get the best result. The long form articles, generally the longer ones do better, 2,000 words. But having said that, I mean, it's got to be good. With video, if somebody presses play after 10 seconds, 50% of the audience are not listening anymore.
Okay.
After a minute, 80% on average. So those are the averages. So you just got to ask yourself, like, is every, the first 10 seconds going to keep someone's attention?
Yeah.
And so you just want to cut it down, get straight into the value. And so most of the time, these videos are 1 or 2 minutes. Because even when I post a 6-minute video and people say, "Oh, watch your video," I say, "Oh yeah," and I ask them a question about what happened in 4 minutes. They don't watch that long.
Yeah. So it seems that the long form article potentially gets better and longer engagement.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to what you're good at, and if you find that you're getting good engagement, you're probably a good writer. I find they're very time consuming writing articles. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But then I use an article to then create about 30 posts. Just using sections of it and imagery to use smaller updates as well. Because you got to remember, like, people, because the attention span's so short, you can repeat stuff in different ways. No one's going to remember what you posted 12 months, well, very rarely 12 months ago. I mean, if you change the image or something, you got to repeat yourself. I mean, you don't want to be coming up with new stuff all the time.
Yeah, fair enough. And look, sometimes it takes a while to get the message through.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So if, let's say someone is trying to target a particular person, how many connections do they make to be able to send a certain amount of messages to, like, I know this is just really just a guess, but just to give some people an idea of the amount or the not much work, or, how much work do they need to put in to get, I don't know, 5 meetings a month or something, or 5 phone calls or something.
Yeah. Well, you got to test it, right? Like, so every business is different. And, I've learned over the years that there's some businesses where it won't work because whatever, like, I don't know why. It's just, it's either their brand or the way that they're approaching them or the target audience. But on average, with the clients that we've worked with, we find, like, if we send 100 connection requests, on average 50% of those will accept, so you've got 50 new connections. And then a conservative estimate, in terms of, if you send them a message, how many you end up speaking to is about 15%. So if you send 50 messages, you get 8 phone calls. That's a pretty good result. So, I mean, 15%, you compare it to the likes of cold calling, which, I know 10 years ago was 1%. You could get an appointment with somebody. So 15 times better than cold calling. You're speaking to them on their own time. You don't have to explain who you are or why you're calling, because they can look at your profile. I mean, these are all things that are important. Like, the profile has to look good, because people will look at it. They go, "Who's this guy?" They have a look at it, and it either has a positive impact or not. So you want to be putting on things on there like social proof and recommendations and credibility, if you've got any awards, things like that, and not overselling yourself by, I guess, cramming keywords in and talking about how great you are. I think it's more about being empathetic to the customer's problem and understanding their frustrations, and which, it is very much like as you would know, important for everything in marketing, is understanding exactly who your customer is and what the problem is that you solve for them.
Yeah. So people are most likely seeing a connection request and then maybe looking at the profile first and then deciding to connect.
Yeah.
Is that?
Well, they probably, I mean, if they're anything like me, if they don't get a customized connection request, like if it's just, you just press connect, they may not even look at your profile. They may accept or decline based on just, what their own objectives are. So for me, like, there's a limit of 30,000 connections on LinkedIn. So I'm at 30,000. So every now and then I have to cull a few connections so I can add people that I want in my network. But when I get, hundreds of connection requests come through, if they don't customize them, I'm quite often just pressing decline, because, if they're not taking the time to write something personal, then You know, I want to make room for the guys that do bother to write something personal. So that's important. And then they may look at your profile. Yeah, they probably will. They definitely will when you send them a message asking for a call. I mean, that's a reasonable commitment.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, look, I imagine there'd be a few people listening thinking, you know, this is sounding really good, but then thinking to themselves, well, how do I find time to make 100 connection requests, then send them personal messages, then follow that up to have a phone call, you know, like, you know, yeah, how do you scale that? You know?
Well, I mean, you delegate it to a company like mine, really. I mean, it's we send 400 connection requests out a month for $2,000 a month. So we've got like account managers that do the connecting and all that stuff, and then I manage the strategy. But you know, like, I mean, this is the thing. If you want to grow an audience of thousands of people and you want to have appointments every month, there's either a financial or a time investment. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
So if you're starting a business, put the time in. What I loved about it when I started, you know, I had no money when I started my company, is that I could sit there with a glass of wine in the evening, sending connection requests for 3 hours, and my calendar would be full the next day.
Yeah. So if you've got time, then no worries. If you don't, so your team literally can say, log into my LinkedIn, make the connection requests, and then when they connect, also send the message.
Yeah, we've got like a number of systems in place so that you know, the client gets to review the list of people before we get started. We've got scripts that get approved in advance. There's nothing that's left to initiative. And then essentially, like, when the prospect comes back with a phone number, they go into a lead spreadsheet, and the client can follow them up.
Yeah.
So we take all the legwork out of them, but then also supervise the strategies to make sure they get the best outcome. I mean, it doesn't always work. I'll be honest with you. Like, sometimes some businesses it doesn't work, but I always say, look, this is what we've got results in the past. These are some examples of the clients. Is there any reason why you think your business wouldn't achieve the same result? And then it's really up to them to decide whether or not they want to give it a go. Sometimes after a month or two, we need to pivot the target market or pivot the messaging a little bit. And then we find that we get the result. But I think because we're measuring every step of the way, we know what the connection request conversion rate is. We know what the message conversion rate is. I think we can isolate the problem area and fix it quite quickly. The challenge is with most of the people that come through my training and companies that come through my training is like you say, first of all, they don't implement, you know, they don't give it the time it deserves. Or, you know, they get something silly wrong, like the messaging. So it just saves them a lot of going through a steep learning curve. I personally couldn't sit there and send a couple hundred connection requests for my own business. I used to, but I have to delegate it. And it's a psychological thing as well. When it's your own profile, you're like, oh, nah, not that guy. Oh, I should write something else for this guy. I should write this. Whereas if it's delegated, it's just going bang, bang, bang. They're all getting the same thing. It's still very personalized because it's targeted. It's all one industry. You know, you obviously use their name, so it doesn't look like it's done to hundreds of people. That's designed that way. But if you delegate it, then, you know, you find that it just gets done like clockwork.
Yeah, no, good. And so, because you mentioned the strategy, tell me a bit about like the support you give in terms of strategy.
Well, I mean, my outcome is to make sure that our clients are all getting a return on investment. I mean, it's not my responsibility to get to achieve that outcome, but I know that if they're getting one, they will stay with us for a long time. So, you know, I'm constantly looking at the volume of leads and the quality of leads and getting feedback from the client as to how their conversations are going. So if I can offer some guidance there, then that'll help them as well. But I mean, most of our clients have got quite a high lifetime value of their clients. So, you know, we've had solar energy companies that within 4 weeks have closed a $14 million contract, you know. So you don't need a lot of them because it is all your, what I call the A-grade premium clients that we're reaching out to.
So the setup of the strategy is really who you're targeting, what's going to be the message, what's the opening, the custom connection request, how you then encouraging that person to give you their number so you can call them and speak to them. Basically, it's just figuring out what that's going to be to potentially get the best result.
Yeah. And I mean, over the years, we've tested so many different approaches that we've got a pretty good idea as to what to write to get the best conversion rate, down to the last word. So it's just, making sure that it's in line with the client's objectives, and then we go for it. And sometimes people say to me, well, that wouldn't work. If you wrote a message like that to me, I wouldn't respond. And I'm like, well, not everyone responds. There's still a conversion rate,
Yes.
but you don't need everyone to respond to get an outcome.
No, that's right. Yeah, no, good. And then, so in terms of creating content, how do you extract some of the goodness out of someone that's busy as well?
Well, I mean, you're doing it now, obviously. Great way to do it is to think about who your audience is. Again, what they're interested in, what their frustrations are. If you're not sure, ask them. Speak to them and just say, like, who do you follow? And and so you could do it by doing interviews like this and adding value. You can do it by if you do talks or webinars, or quite often, with a client, we'll sit down with them with a videographer, and I'll interview them with a specific set of questions that I know will drive engaging content, because they're likely to be relevant to other people as well. And then each question and answer can be one video. So I think you should definitely be thinking about recording or doing all your content at one time in advance for the next 3 months. And then editing it and all that sort of stuff, getting it ready, and then getting a calendar put together, a content calendar, so you know what you're posting, what day and when. There is a resource on my web. I know you're going to ask me this at the end, but there is a resource on my website. I just finished an ebook last week called 100 Killer Social Media Content Ideas. Yeah, so right. You could check that out if you want some ideas of how to create content. But I just think it's very important that you do it in an efficient way as well as effective. So,
that's on Bibby Consulting Group, is it?
.com.au.
.com.au. Yep.
Yeah.
And just on the front page.
Under resources.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, good. And so is that something your team helps with as well, like the creation of content and then the posting?
Yeah. So we create the content up front with the client with one of those interviews, which it really helps them, because a lot of them aren't comfortable in front of the camera, and I can ask them engaging questions, and then the video editors, subtitles, they do intro, outro, they chop it up into about 40 videos. They create quote images as well. And then a copywriter sits down, writes all the caption, and then every month that they get a content calendar with all the posts, when they're going to be posted in advance, that they get approved, and then our team basically upload the posts on the day at the optimum time. So it does happen like clockwork. I always encourage clients to post additional stuff as well about what they're up to. That always, helps. But we're able to, because we're growing their audience at the same time, they're getting more and more engagement every month. Because, it's not like Instagram where whoever follows you. On LinkedIn, you can actually invite people to be in your network, which means they're more likely to see your content. So you can have an extremely targeted audience, and the social database is an asset to the business. I think it's more valuable than an email database, because emails, 30% of them expire after 12 months, like they've changed their email address. Yeah, you don't change your LinkedIn account, do you?
No. Yeah. And it is just getting harder and harder to get through on email. And I think the email providers are getting better and better at identifying any kind of group emails that are being sent out and putting that into spam. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, the kids are using Facebook and TikTok accounts at school now, right? Instead of email addresses. So it's only going to go one way.
Well, that's right. Yeah. No, perfect. Well, look, I think you've pretty much covered all my questions. Is there anything else that you can think of that is worth adding before we wrap up?
Yeah. I think if there's anybody listening that has an organization which they're scaling. Have I frozen?
The image has, but the sound is fine.
That's strange. Okay, well, I'll keep going with the audio. So if anybody's got a bigger organization that they're looking to scale, you have to look at LinkedIn advertising. It's definitely a very scalable way to grow a business. And they've got a lot of the features that Facebook has. LinkedIn now has as well: website retargeting, lead generation forms.
Really?
So definitely don't ignore LinkedIn ads. 3
So
years ago,
you can place LinkedIn ads to a target audience as well, and then you can also retarget people that are in your network, basically.
Well, anyone that comes through your website that has a LinkedIn account, you can retarget them. Yeah. So I'm just going to turn my webcam off and on. Let's see if that works.
Yeah, the technical issues.
I know this is mainly all for the audio, so we'll just keep going.
But that's fine. It's good to get the video working.
Mm-hmm.
And so there we go. I think it's coming back. And so what's the typical strategy with the ad?
The lead generation forms are really where we're getting the best conversion rates, which basically means that when somebody sees the ad, they can click one button and that submits their information. So they don't have to fill out any forms. They don't have to leave LinkedIn. All you need
still
is
following the same methodology in terms of a download of something like a white paper or an article or something of value.
Yeah, or just register your interest. I mean, you can. It could be like even real estate. New projects. Register your interest in this development. I mean, it's got to be compelling enough for people to want to have a reason to submit their information.
Yeah.
But if you're targeted and you got a good message, then it's extremely effective.
Yeah. So would you say, step one, define your strategy and then start connecting and growing your connections, whilst getting some instant kind of, people to actually call and start generating some business. 2, you start creating some content to support your LinkedIn network. And then 3, then you can start placing some ads and some retargeting of ads to all of the people that have been seeing your content and the connections you're making.
Yeah. You can also if you think about it, like you're connecting with all these CEOs of mining companies, for example. Not only are they going to see your content, but you're also going to see theirs. So, like a lot of these guys, might not necessarily. Maybe they get like a lot of engagement, maybe they don't. But if you take the time to comment on whatever they're posting and engage with their content, it releases dopamine or oxytocins or endorphins in their brain, which means they like you and trust you more as well. So you build a relationship that way. So it's worth spending time in the newsfeed. But the problem is most people, when they go onto LinkedIn and they're like, I'm going to do some LinkedIn work, they scroll, like you said, but then they go look at their invitations. They're like, oh, I've got 20 invitations, accept, maybe reject a couple, but they're just being reactive. So when they build their network, it's all mainly salespeople and recruiters. So when they log into LinkedIn, what do they see in the newsfeed? They just see crap from people that aren't in their target audience. Whereas if you're proactive and you're building a really targeted network, like a lot of our clients, they look at their newsfeed and it's all CEOs of mining companies. So it's very easy to start engaging with their content and know that it's going to benefit your business.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so even being proactive in supporting or commenting or liking content of the people you're wanting to get the foot in the door is, it's almost like that a fourth part to the strategy.
Mate, they'll love you if you always comment. If you always comment on their stuff and they're taking the time to post it, they will love you. They'll buy you lunch.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, good. Oh, all right, Nat. Look, thank you so much. I think you definitely answered a lot of my questions, which were questions for our clients and myself. Look, if some of the audience they want to reach out and get in contact with you because maybe they don't have the time but want to potentially continue the conversation, how's best to do that?
Well, I think, whatever way they like to consume content, I'm there. Instagram, Nat Bibby, LinkedIn, obviously, I'm on there, Nathaniel Bibby. We've got the Nathaniel Bibby podcast, which is on, all Spotify, iTunes, Google. And then YouTube, I've got lots of my keynotes and live training is up there. There's a lot of value on my YouTube channel. There's almost, I think it's about 700 videos. We got last month, we had 100,000 views on the YouTube videos.
Okay, great.
So that's going really well.
Yeah. Oh, good.
So follow me wherever you like to consume content.
Wherever you like to consume content.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, look, thank you very much for coming on today. Yeah, look, I think the content was very valuable. So thank you very much
Thank
for your
you.
time.
No, thanks for having me.
No worries. Good on you, mate. Cheers.
Ciao.